Hey everyone, me Kevin here. In this video, we are going to listen to what the Problem Solvers Caucus says about how close we are to actually getting a stimulus deal done, and then we'll get an update from Steny Hoyer about what he thinks the next steps might be. And as usual, I've got to bring myself, well, actually for the first time, a Don't Sue Me Bro mug, because I'm sorry, I never like delivering news when it has to do with Congress, because Congress sucks. But you can always get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes via the link down below. Next to the link to get 4 free stocks with Webull worth up to $1,600. Just make sure you deposit $100 to get your more expensive free stocks. Okay, let's get started. And yes, this is CNN. Yes, they lean left. Okay, here we go.
Unemployment benefit for more than 10 million Americans in this country are set to run out just about 2 days after Christmas. Joining us now, the co-chairs of the Problem Solvers Caucus in the House of Representatives, Republican Congressman Tom Reed of New York, Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us, and thanks to both of you for cooperating, working together on a bipartisan basis to help millions of Americans who are struggling and things are about to get worse. Congressman Reed, we're about to see the first coronavirus vaccine go into Americans' arms before they get handed a desperately needed relief check. They need it right now. So why are scientists able to do what your colleagues can't do in the House and Senate, pass legislation to help millions of Americans who have to put food on the table and pay the rent?
Good point.
Well, I would agree with you, Wolf, but I do want you to remember we did do 3.5 bills that got some relief out there before up to this point in time, but we need to finish the job.
But that was back in March, Congressman. That was way back. Since then, you see the numbers. It's getting worse and worse and worse.
I agree with you, Wolf. I share the frustration of you and millions of Americans. That's why we're in the room, Josh and I, in a bipartisan.
I love it when news reporters slam these guys for... Dude, that was 7 months ago. Like, why do y'all keep going back to the CARES Act? It's so true. Come on.
Way now in a bicameral, working with our Senate friends who are sincerely good faith actors with good hearts that want to get this done and get to yes on these issues. And I will tell you, over the last couple of weeks working in this fashion, we are within inches, millimeters of getting this done and solving this package of $908 billion worth of relief that would take care of the liability concerns, state and local, which are the last sticking points that are out there. And I got to just tell you, we are so close to the finish line.
Well, I hope you get over that finish line. Congressman Gottheimer, the sticking points, liability protections, which Congressman Reed just mentioned, Republicans want that. State and local aid. A lot of these states, these local governments, they're in desperate need of some help right now. The Democrats want that. The Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is suggesting leaving those provisions aside for now. The House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, they oppose that idea. So
I'm going to quickly interject here as well and say that Mitt Romney has also suggested, hey, look, we can get the $750 billion package done. That's taking out the about $60 billion for state and local government funding and liability protections. Let's get everything else done. The good news is we do have about $6 billion in both of the bills outside of state and local government funding for vaccine distribution. That has been line itemed out, which is good, but it does still leave state and local governments in a lurch if we do not get funding to them, which is not good, because that could lead to another 1.2 million job layoffs in the state and local government sector. Police, firefighters, city, county workers, you name it.
So what's going on right now? Do you agree with Congressman Reed that you're inches away from the finishing line?
I do, and we're not going to give up. You know, I think we can't. And to your point, Wolf, on state and helping local governments, you're talking about paying firefighters and law enforcement and teachers right now. So many governments and local governments are short on dollars and as you know, have high expenditures. And especially now as we got to get the vaccines out, it's critically important that we help them. We help our hospitals and our doctors and our frontline healthcare workers. And you know, Wolf, as you...
This is something, by the way, that has been conflated a lot. I hear a lot, and reporters for weeks have been saying, hey, if we don't get state and local government funding, we don't get distribution. And that's what we had all thought until we got the breakdown of the bills actually separating those things. And we don't even really have a breakdown of the bills yet. I mean, the breakdown of the proposal, which we've gone through many times before. But we do have it separated out, which is good.
Said over and over again, people are in food lines for the first time. They're facing evictions if we don't act. and unemployment's going to run out. So what we've put together is a bipartisan package, as Tom said, working with our Senate colleagues, that helps people with unemployment. It helps our small businesses that really can use more assistance and keep those jobs. And really now it's up to us to get it over the line. And we're not going to give up. And that's the bottom line, because people just can't. They're counting on us. And I know Tom's committed to this. We're going to continue to work literally day and night until we get there.
So, Congressman Reed, are you willing to accept the assistance, the aid to local and state governments? And what are you going to do about this liability protection that Mitch McConnell is demanding?
It's a good question, because he's now asking the Republican of the group here. I do want to quickly point this out, and then we'll get that answer. Take a look at this. 12 million this is from Yahoo Finance. 12 million workers face benefits cliff after Christmas, and that's because we get this expiration on the 26th. And here, I can't make it any larger, but if you pause, you could look at this map here, and you can see how many thousands of people in every different state will be unemployed without benefits. About 1.5 million in New York, 424,000 in Florida, 775,000 in Texas, 2.9 million in California. Come on, that's got to be like 8 or 9% of the population there. I think California is somewhere around 38 million in population. Just incredible. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, I think they go hand in hand, and obviously I'm willing to support the local and state aid component of it, and the liability. I think people and the viewers need to understand why it's so important that we get this done now. I mean, we're not looking to close the doors to all liability claims. The people that are acting in good faith, the people the bar owners, the hospitals, the colleges, that were trying to do the best they could in a true emergency, those folks, I think we could all agree, need to be protected. And we keep the doors open for lawsuits where the individuals and the colleges and universities that just were completely reckless really put people's lives at risk. And there's a way to do this. And the good news is these folks in the room that we're with in the bipartisan group, Problem Solvers Caucus, plus also the Senate colleagues, they're listening to each other now.
The way he's describing this makes it seem like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, if somebody was totally reckless, yeah, they should be the ones subject to lawsuits, not the restaurant owner. The problem is the way they've worded the language makes it very, very difficult to even say that when somebody was reckless, that they were reckless, because you have to go back and say, okay, you were reckless in April of 2020, and you led to the death of a family member, let's say, and you were totally reckless about it. You didn't require anybody take any precautions at all. You didn't even put hand sanitizer out, something like that, right? And that's something that most businesses are doing now. Well, you have to then trace back to April and associate the time frame in which you were exposed with what conditions were required by local governments at the time. So if in April, no local government said, yep, we require hand sanitizer, even though today that looks reckless, back then, if it wasn't a requirement, boom, the state, the liability protections the Republicans are proposing says, nope, sorry, no liability here. It's almost near immunity. It's very, very difficult to get a lawsuit through one of those.
Talking to each other. And I think they both recognize what's at stake here with all the other relief, plus the real substantive issue of protecting people from these liability claims.
Well, let's see how that unfolds.
And keep in mind, the latest reports, which we broke down last week through some legal research, were that there are only about 3 to 4, maybe 5 COVID lawsuits per state right now. One legal agency, data analytics agency, had mentioned that maybe 4 to 5 lawsuits per state, somewhere around 150 to 200. The highest estimate of potentially even COVID-related lawsuits, or even remotely COVID-related, was that maybe there were somewhere around 700-800 COVID lawsuits, but nowhere near the multiple thousands or tens of thousands of COVID lawsuits that were expected. Mitch McConnell was mentioning we were going to have a flood of these COVID lawsuits so that litigious attorneys could collect as many fees as they could. And this is why it was so pressing that we have these liability protections. But we're just not seeing those insane cases. Okay, so we just heard the Problem Solvers Caucus mention that we are within millimeters of actually getting a deal done, but we do still have those holdouts on state and local liability issues, which isn't much insight, but Steny Hoyer gives us a little bit more.
Care dollars, all of which are in the agreement that has forged, the bipartisan agreement forged by the senators and by the problem solvers in our own House and by members in both the House and the Senate. So we need to get the essential done, and we'll have time to get stuff done that we didn't include because we couldn't get political agreement. We'll have time to do that. We have a new president. We have a new Congress. We're not going to leave anybody behind.
Well, we'll be watching this very, very closely.
That's really interesting. So Steny Hoyer is suggesting, hey, don't worry, we will get this done, even if we have to do it with the new Congress and the new president. Now, keep in mind, when they say new Congress, that's because the new Congress technically takes over in January when the new senators and representatives get sworn in who, took over seats that other people lost. And then, of course, the inauguration comes up on January 20th. If we just pull up the information we have on the Republican proposal here on the left and kind of compare that to the bipartisan proposal on the right, we can kind of blend this with what we've heard and what Romney says. Romney saying, hey, let's just get a $750 billion deal done. Let's forget about the state and local government aid for right now. Let's forget about that. Let's come back to the liability shield portion. Let's just X these things out, which, by the way, I know I'm in the way here, but it says liability provisions down here. Let's X these things out. Let's get a $750 billion deal done, and we'll come back to those things. As Steny Hoyer says, hey, we'll get this done in January. We're going to keep talking. Mitch McConnell has also told us, hey, this isn't going to be it. Like, we're willing to keep talking. And now, obviously, Mitch McConnell saying we're willing to keep talking and actually passing a bill can be two very different things. But at the bare minimum, it would not be shocking for Congress to say, look, everybody wants to go home for Christmas and New Year's. Let's just push this through. $320 billion for PPP, $288 for PPP, one of those numbers, pretty dang close. $82 billion for schools, at least $31 billion for transportation, at least $26 billion for food programs, which would be increasing benefits of the SNAP food program and obviously helping distribute food. The housing aid, come on, this is so desperately needed, the $25 billion. Here's actually, the $16 billion, not $6 billion, $16 billion here in vaccine distribution. That's larger than I thought it was. And current research actually shows that we need at least $6 billion to distribute the vaccine, but they're actually funding it with $16 billion to make sure there's enough money for as long as we need it to get this vaccine distributed. So that would actually be very good. That's $10 billion more than the estimates of $6 billion that we need to distribute the vaccine. So that's actually good. We've also got money in here for broadband to get internet to areas of the country that have low access to broadband, which makes sense given all the distance education and distance remote work that is going on, childcare funding, and likely credits. We don't have the exact details of that yet, but probably tax credits are in here as well. The big question marks, obviously, remaining are we going to see those stimulus checks? Are we going to end up getting that $1,200 stimulus check? Or are we going to get $600 per person? Romney believes that, hey, look, if we get down to a $750 billion package, we might have room to add something larger in. And we've even heard Senator John Thune mention the same thing, that if something comes out like state and local government funding and liability protections, maybe we can throw something else in, like those stimulus checks. Certainly on unemployment aid, we won't know exactly if we're going to get that boost yet or not. That's the big question mark for now, but this gives us a little bit more insight into what Congress is thinking over the weekend. And obviously, I will be back with more updates as they come in. So thank you as always for watching, and folks, we'll see you in the very next video.